When you thought everything was lost, God saw you. Have you ever felt invisible? As if you've been fighting, praying, holding on, but no one seems to notice? You take care of everyone. You give of yourself. You stay quiet. But almost no one asks how you're doing. Then comes that thought. Could it be that God has forgotten me too? Comment. God, I just wanted to be seen. Me. The pain of not being seen doesn't come from a shout. It comes from the echo, from the good morning that nobody answers, from the effort that nobody recognizes, from the inner struggle that nobody applauds. You're there, dragging yourself emotionally, but still standing. And it seems like no one sees you, but God does. In the Bible, a woman named Hagar ran away, alone, pregnant, hurt, rejected. But in Genesis 16, something supernatural happens. God finds her in the desert, and she says, "You are the God who sees me. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You were found in your own desert." Comment. God sees me, even in secret. God sees when no one applauds. God sees the effort you don't post about. He sees the prayer you whisper quietly in the silence of your room. And he sees it not with judgment, but with tenderness. You don't have to prove your strength all the time anymore. You just need to remember you are seen and chosen. While the world looks at the stage, God looks behind the scenes. While the world measures results, God recognizes hearts. You are seen by the one who never forgets. You are loved by the one who never stops looking. You are safe, even when you feel invisible. Sleep in peace. Heaven saw you today and is taking care of you, even in silence. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that they are still seen by God. Comment, "He saw me when no one else did." Subscribe to receive words for those who are tired of feeling ignored. There are days when the weight of invisibility feels like it's crushing our chest. You smile, but inside, there's a silent scream no one hears. You know that feeling of being in a room full of people and yet feeling completely alone, of doing everything right, trying so hard, and still, no one really notices. Often you're the person who remembers everyone's birthday, who asks how their day went, who offers help before they even ask. You're the first to reach out, to send a message, to notice when someone isn't doing well. But when it's you who needs something, it seems like the whole world is too busy to notice. And in those moments, the silence of your phone becomes deafening. The absence of a "how are you" weighs a ton. The lack of recognition for all you do burns like an ember. It's like you're screaming for help on a frequency nobody can hear. Some days you wake up with a knot already in your throat. That feeling it's going to be another day carrying the world on your shoulders. Another day of giving without receiving. Another day your voice will be just background noise in people's lives. And you wonder, how long? How long will I feel like this? Will someone truly see me someday? The worst part is not the pain itself. The worst part is questioning whether this pain is valid. Am I overreacting? Am I being dramatic? Am I asking too much? So you swallow your tears, force a smile, and keep going. Because that's what strong people do, right? They endure. They keep going. They don't bother others with their needs. But what about when it feels like even God doesn't hear you? When your prayers seem to hit the ceiling and bounce back? When you kneel night after night, begging for a sign, for a change, for relief, and all you get is silence? God, do you see me? Do you know I'm here? Do you care about what I'm feeling? These questions hurt more than any physical wound. Because when even the divine seems to have forgotten you, what's left? Allow me to whisper something to you, just for you to hear. You're not alone in that feeling. Millions of hearts at this very moment are beating with the same pain. Millions of souls are wondering if they've been forgotten. There is a silent community of invisible people, carrying burdens too heavy, wearing smiles too big, hiding tears too deep. And you know what else? This invisibility has a name, a history, a record in sacred pages. Do you know Hagar's story? Maybe not by name, but by experience. She was an Egyptian servant, a woman without status, without a voice, without rights in that society. She was used by Sarah to bear a child with Abraham when Sarah couldn't have children. Hagar became pregnant, and once she realized her new status, she began to despise her mistress. Sarah, hurt and jealous, treated Hagar so harshly that the young Egyptian fled into the desert, pregnant, alone, without resources, without direction, without hope. The desert in that time was almost a death sentence for a lone woman. It was at that moment, at the lowest point in Hagar's life, that something extraordinary happened. An angel of the Lord found her near a spring in the desert. It wasn't Hagar who found the angel. It was the angel, God's messenger, who found her. When she had no strength left to look, when she had given up, when she was ready to surrender to the desert, God saw her. And the angel said, "Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from and where are you going?" Imagine the impact of those words. First, he called her by name, Hagar. Not hey you, not servant, not Egyptian, but Hagar, her name, her identity. Someone knew her name. Next, he acknowledged her condition, servant of Sarah, without judgment, just stating her reality. Then he asked a question that revealed genuine interest in her journey. Where have you come from, and where are you going? For the first time, someone was truly interested in Hagar, her story, her plans, her future. And Hagar's response is as raw as it is true. "I'm running away from my mistress Sarah." She doesn't try to appear strong. She doesn't try to justify herself. She doesn't try to dress up her situation. She simply admits, "I'm running. I'm afraid. I'm desperate." What happens next changed not just Hagar's life forever, but also the spiritual understanding of future generations. The angel gives her instructions to go back and submit to Sarah, a difficult directive, no doubt, but accompanied by a promise. "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." Then, something even more amazing. The angel says, "You are pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery." Ishmael, in Hebrew, God hears. Can you imagine? At the moment, Hagar was certain that no one in the world cared about her. God not only saw her, but also heard her cry so deeply that he instructed her to name her son as a permanent testimony of it. Hagar's reaction is pure awe and gratitude. She gives the Lord who spoke to her a name, El Roi, which means the God who sees me. And about the well where that encounter happened, she declares, "This is the well of the one who lives and sees me." This experience was so powerful that Hagar coined a new name for God, never before used. Not God Almighty, not Creator God, not Provider God, but God who sees me. As if, out of all the divine attributes, the one that most touched her wounded heart was this: that when no one else recognized her worth, her pain, her humanity, God did. And that's exactly what I want you to know today. God sees you. He sees you when you smile to hide your tears. He sees you when you serve others even though you're exhausted. He sees you when you pray in the silence of your room. He sees you when you feel alone in a crowd. He sees you when you wonder if it's worth going on. He sees you when you take the last step of your strength and keep walking by faith. You have never been alone. You have never been forgotten. You have never been invisible. Hagar's desert is not so different from yours. Maybe your desert is a marriage where you feel invisible. Maybe it's a job where your efforts are never recognized. Maybe it's a family where everyone receives attention except you. Maybe it's a church where you serve faithfully, but nobody knows your name. Maybe it's a health condition no one understands because you don't look sick. Maybe it's an internal struggle, so deep you can't even put it into words. Whatever your desert, know this: God isn't waiting for you to find him. He comes to you. Just like he did with Hagar, he calls you by name. He acknowledges your condition. He's interested in your journey, where you've come from and where you're going. But maybe you're thinking, if God really sees me, why doesn't he change my situation? Why doesn't he answer my prayers? Why does he allow me to keep feeling this way? These are valid questions, ones that many sincere hearts have asked over the centuries. And while there aren't simple answers to the mystery of human suffering, we can find a few clues in Hagar's story itself. Notice that God didn't remove Hagar's challenge. He didn't magically transport her away from Sarah and Abraham. He didn't change her status from servant to mistress. Instead, he did three deeply significant things. He saw her, recognizing her existence, her pain, her humanity. He promised her a future. Her descendants would be countless. He guaranteed his presence. The name Ishmael would be a constant reminder that God hears. And often, that's exactly what we need. Not necessarily an immediate change in our circumstances, but the certainty that we are seen in our pain. The promise that there's a greater purpose at work even when we can't see it, and the assurance we're not alone on the journey. Think about it. What if your invisibility is not divine neglect, but a stage being set for a powerful testimony? What if this desert is not a place of abandonment, but of intimate encounter with the God who sees? Hagar went back to Sarah. She returned to the same difficult situation as before, but she went back different. She went back seen. She went back heard. She went with the certainty that even when no one else acknowledged her existence, the Creator of the universe saw her. And that changes everything. When you know you're seen by God, other people's opinions lose some of their power over you. When you know you're heard by God, others' silence hurts less. When you know you're loved by God, human rejection, though still painful, no longer defines you. There's a freedom that comes from truly knowing you're seen. A courage that's born not from pretending the pain doesn't exist, but from knowing someone greater than that pain is with you in it. King David grasped this deeply when he wrote, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your right hand will guide me and hold me fast." Psalm 139, 7-10. He doesn't describe a distant God. He doesn't describe a God too busy with major world issues to care about one wounded heart. He describes a God who is present, attentive, one who sustains. Even in the most remote places, heaven's heights or the deepest sea, God is there. Even in the darkest moments, symbolized by the grave, God is there. Not as a passive observer, but as an active presence guiding and sustaining. That's the God who sees you now. He sees beyond the "I'm fine" mask you show the world. He sees beyond the practiced smile that hides an inner storm. He sees the words you don't say, the dreams you've delayed, the tears you've held back. Most importantly, he not only sees, he cares. Remember Peter's words, "Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." 1 Peter 5:7. In the original Greek, the word used is mele, which carries the sense of active concern, genuine interest. It's not just a distant acknowledgement of your existence, It's an intimate involvement in your well-being. When my first child was born, I spent many nights awake just watching him, observing his breathing, counting his tiny fingers, marveling at each facial expression. Even when he slept deeply, unaware of my presence, I was there, seeing, caring, loving. That's how God sees you, with the attentive gaze of one who knows every detail, every need, every unfulfilled dream, with the care of one who delights in your very existence, even when you're unaware of his presence. Isaiah 49:16 says, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are ever before me." Imagine that, your name engraved on God's hands, not written in ink that can fade, not typed in a file that can be deleted, but engraved, permanent, indelible. And what are these walls? In the original context, it refers to the walls of Jerusalem, symbolizing protection, identity, boundaries. In other words, God not only remembers you as an abstract concept, He's constantly aware of everything related to your safety, your identity, your boundaries. You never leave God's thoughts. You never slip into the background. You never become less important because others seem more urgent or more worthy of attention. To the God who can number the hairs on your head, Luke 12:7, who knows your thoughts before you form them, Psalm 139. Amun 2, who keeps track of your tears in a bottle, Psalm 56:8. You are never invisible. And if you're asking yourself, if God sees me so clearly, why do I still allow others to make me feel invisible? Why does it still hurt so much to be ignored, forgotten, unappreciated? The answer is simple and profound. We were created for connection. God made us for relationships. He himself said, "It is not good for the man to be alone." Genesis 2:18. Feeling invisible to others hurts because it goes against God's design for our lives. But here's the liberating truth. While human connection is important, it can never be enough. Even the healthiest, most loving relationships can't completely fill a void only God can occupy. St. Augustine expressed it perfectly. "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you." When we understand this, that we are first and foremost seen by God, our desperate need for human validation begins to subside. It doesn't disappear completely. After all, we are still relational beings, but it takes its proper place in our lives. We start finding peace even when others don't see us. We start finding purpose even when our efforts go unrecognized. We start finding identity not in what we do or how people perceive us, but in who we are in the eyes of the one who truly matters. In C.S. Lewis's words, "Look for yourself as you are in God's sight. Until you have faced that, you have not faced yourself." So what does it mean to be truly seen by God? What changes when we internalize this truth? First, you begin to live from the inside out, not from the outside in. Instead of shaping your life in response to others' expectations, you live from the unshakable certainty that you are loved, valued, and important to the Creator of the universe. Second, you become more authentic. No more masks needed when you know you are seen and loved just as you are. No more performances required when you realize your worth isn't in what you do, but in who you are. Third, you develop deeper compassion for others. When you know how painful it is to feel invisible, you become more intentional about noticing others, about seeing them, valuing them, and saying, "I see you, you matter." And perhaps most surprisingly, you may start finding purpose in your own invisibility. How so? Well, when you understand that God is at work in the backstage of your life, even in moments when no one else is looking, you realize that nothing, absolutely nothing, is wasted. Every silent tear, every whispered prayer, every unnoticed act of service, every moment of faithfulness when giving up would have been easier. All of that is seen, valued, and woven into a larger tapestry whose full pattern we'll only see in eternity. The Apostle Paul understood this when he wrote to the Corinthians. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. 1 Corinthians 15:58. Not in vain. What a powerful promise for anyone who feels invisible. Your effort is not wasted. Your persistence is not ignored. Your faithfulness is not overlooked, because the God who sees not only observes, he rewards. As Hebrews 11:6 says, and without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. This is the truth that turns deserts into gardens, invisibility into purpose, pain into testimony. You are seen by the only one whose gaze truly matters. So if today you're feeling forgotten, ignored, or unappreciated, if you're struggling with the feeling that your prayers bounce back from the ceiling, that your efforts are for nothing, that your pain doesn't matter to anyone, let me say it again. God sees you, not as a distant observer, but as a loving Father, not with indifference, but with active compassion, not simply noticing your existence, but delighting in who you are. Your name is engraved on his hands. You have a place reserved in his heart. You have his full attention, his unconditional love, his constant care, and that will never change, never diminish, never depend on your performance or on how others see you. As the prophet Jeremiah wrote, I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with unfailing kindness. Jeremiah 31:3. Everlasting, with no beginning or end, without conditions or qualifications. A love that existed before you were born and will continue long after this life is over. A love that sees you when no one else does, that values you when no one else does, that sustains you when no one else does. It's that love that invites you to leave the shadows of perceived invisibility and step into the light of your true identity, not as someone who must constantly prove your worth or compete for attention, but as a beloved child whose very existence is celebrated by the Creator of the universe. It's that love that whispers, even in your loneliest moments, I see you, I know you, I love you, and that is enough. So next time you feel invisible, when your contributions go unnoticed, when your effort isn't recognized, when your pain is minimized, remember, there is one whose gaze is never off you, whose love for you never fades, whose presence never leaves. And in that divine gaze, your invisibility becomes purpose, your pain becomes testimony, your desert becomes a place of encounter, because you have never truly been alone, never truly been forgotten, never truly been lost. You have always been and always will be, under the eyes of the one who not only sees what you do, but who you really are. And that, my friend, changes everything. While the world looks at the stage, God looks behind the scenes. While the world measures results, God recognizes hearts. You are seen by the one who never forgets. You are loved by the one who never stops looking. You are safe, even when you feel invisible. Sleep in peace. Heaven saw you today and is taking care of you, even in silence. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that they are still seen by God. Comment, He saw me when no one else did. Subscribe to receive words for those who are tired of feeling ignored. You know those days when you look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back at you, not because of physical changes, but because something inside you seems to have been lost along the way. Your eyes look duller, your smile doesn't reach your cheeks, and there's a persistent feeling that you're disappearing, even though you're physically present. On those days, the routine feels even heavier. Getting out of bed takes heroic effort. Responding to messages seems monumental. Smiling at people becomes pure willpower. Because on the inside, you're screaming, "Will someone please notice I'm not okay? Will someone see beyond this facade I can barely maintain?" But the world keeps spinning. People keep making demands, requiring your energy, expecting you to show up like you always do. And you keep giving, even when your inner well is almost dry. Because that's what you do. That's who you are. The reliable person. The strong one. The one who always puts others first. Until one day, something cracks. Maybe it's a small disappointment that becomes the last straw. Maybe it's an insensitive comment from someone who should know you better. Maybe it's simply the cumulative exhaustion of years trying to be everything for everyone and nothing for yourself. And in that moment of breaking, when you finally let the tears flow, tears that have waited so long to be shed, there rises that painful question, "God, don't you see me either? Are you too busy with more important people, more urgent problems, more worthy prayers?" It hurts to ask. It feels almost blasphemous. After all, we've been taught since childhood that God sees everything, knows everything, is everywhere. How could we doubt his attention? But the truth is, in our most human, vulnerable, broken moments, when we feel ignored by those whose love and attention we crave most, it's only natural for that doubt to extend even to our relationship with the divine. That's how Elijah felt when he fled into the desert after his great victory on Mount Carmel, after courageously confronting 450 prophets of Baal, after witnessing God answer his prayer with fire from heaven, after experiencing one of the greatest miracles recorded in the Old Testament. He found himself alone, afraid, exhausted, and deeply discouraged. "I have had enough, Lord," he prayed. "Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." 1 Kings 19:4. Here was one of Israel's greatest prophets, a man who had just seen God's extraordinary power firsthand, expressing a desire to die, because even after everything he had seen and experienced, at that moment of fear and exhaustion, he felt alone, abandoned, forgotten. And how did God respond? Not with a scolding. Not with a harsh reminder of all Elijah had witnessed. Not with a, "you should know better." Instead, God first tended to Elijah's physical needs. He sent an angel to provide food and water and allowed the prophet to rest. He recognized that sometimes our spiritual perception is affected by our physical and emotional state, and that caring for the body is part of caring for the soul. Then, God revealed himself to Elijah, not in the powerful wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, all impressive, dramatic manifestations, but in a gentle whisper, a soft, intimate presence, speaking directly to his wounded heart. And then, most surprisingly, God listened to Elijah's complaint. He allowed the prophet to pour out his frustration, his fear, his feeling of being alone in his mission. God didn't interrupt. He didn't immediately correct him. He just listened. "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty," Elijah lamented. "The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." 1 Kings 19-10. Can you hear the loneliness in those words? The sense of being the only one who cares, of carrying a burden too heavy for a single pair of shoulders, of feeling invisible in the struggle, unrecognized in the sacrifice. And God's response is revealing. He first gives Elijah a new mission, showing he still trusts him, still has a purpose for him, still sees value in his life and ministry. Then he gently corrects Elijah's distorted perception. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal. In other words, you're not as alone as you think, Elijah. There are others you can't see. Your perception isn't the entire reality. This story teaches us so much about how God deals with us when we feel invisible. He doesn't scold us for feeling forgotten. He doesn't shame us for doubting. Instead, he meets our basic needs. He speaks in a gentle voice we can hear, even in our most fragile state. He listens to our complaints without judgment. He renews our purpose. And he gently broadens our limited vision to include possibilities we cannot see right now. That's exactly what he does for you today. When you feel invisible to the world, God whispers, "I see you clearly." When you feel inadequate, God affirms, "You are enough." When you feel forgotten, God reminds, "Your name is engraved on my hands." When you feel purposeless, God assures, "I still have plans for you." When you feel alone in the fight, God reveals, "There are others you don't yet see." And maybe most importantly, when you feel incapable of going on, God promises, "My power is made perfect in weakness." The Apostle Paul understood this deeply. He wrote to the Corinthians about a thorn in the flesh, some persistent affliction. 3 times he begged the Lord to remove it, and 3 times the answer came back, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:9. What an extraordinary reply. Not immediate healing, not the removal of the problem, but a promise that precisely where we feel most weak, inadequate, and invisible, that's where God's power can shine most clearly. It's a divine paradox. Our weakness becomes the stage for God's strength. Our insufficiency becomes the perfect setting for God's sufficiency. Our invisibility to the world becomes the blank canvas where God paints his most awe-inspiring masterpieces. Paul grasped this so thoroughly that he reached a radical conclusion. "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. For when I am weak, then I am strong." 2 Corinthians 12:9-10. Boasting in weaknesses, finding joy in limitations, that goes against everything the world teaches us. We're told to hide our weaknesses, compensate for our limitations, only present our best side to the world. We're taught that value comes from strength, accomplishments, visibility. But God's kingdom operates by different principles. In it, the last shall be first. The humble shall be exalted. Those who mourn shall be comforted. And those who are invisible to the world are precisely the ones God sees most clearly. Jesus himself emphasized this when he said, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven." Matthew 6:1. He goes on to talk about giving to the needy in secret, praying in secret, fasting in secret, all actions that no one else sees but that your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward. There's something profoundly significant about this principle, something that speaks directly to the heart of anyone who feels invisible. It's as if Jesus is saying, don't worry so much about who sees or doesn't see what you do. The only gaze that truly matters is the Father's, and he sees everything, especially what no one else does. It's an invitation to live for an audience of one, to find peace in the certainty that even if no one else notices, God notices. Even if no one else values you, God values you. Even if no one else remembers, God remembers. That doesn't mean human recognition isn't important, or that we shouldn't long for relationships where we're truly seen and valued. We were created for connection, for community, for belonging. Jesus himself deeply treasured friendships. with Lazarus, Martha, and Mary, with the beloved disciple, with the inner circle of Peter, James, and John. But it does mean our primary, deepest need to be seen can only be fully and consistently met not by human eyes, which are fallible, inconstant, limited, but by the divine gaze that never fails, never shifts, never gets distracted. When we truly internalize that we are first and foremost seen by God, something extraordinary happens. Paradoxically, we become better able to form healthy relationships with others. Why? Because we no longer approach them with a desperate void that needs filling. Instead, we come with a fullness that overflows. We don't need others to constantly validate us anymore because we know who we are in God's eyes. We don't need to prove our worth through exhausting performances because we understand our value doesn't lie in what we do, but in who we are, beloved children of the King. And perhaps most surprisingly, we begin to develop eyes that see as God sees. We start noticing the invisible people around us, those who serve in silence, who suffer in silence, who love in silence. We begin to value not just what shines on the surface, but what is genuine in the depths. We start being, for others, the kind of presence we yearn for ourselves, one that truly sees, truly listens, truly values, truly cares. And in the process of seeing, hearing, and valuing others the way we want to be seen, heard, and valued, we discover something wonderful. The community we longed for starts to form around us, not based on appearances, achievements, or status, but on authenticity, vulnerability, and genuine love. A community that, however imperfectly, reflects how God sees us, that creates safe spaces where we can set aside our masks, that celebrates not only our successes, but our courage to keep trying when things feel too difficult. A community where, finally, we are seen, not just for what we do, but for who we truly are. Of course, even within such a community, there will be moments when we feel misunderstood, underestimated, or forgotten. We're imperfect humans relating to other imperfect humans. Occasional invisibility is an inevitable part of human experience on this side of eternity. But when those moments come, and they will, we can remember the fundamental truth that sustains us. We are never truly invisible, never truly forgotten, never truly abandoned, because the God who created galaxies and counts the hairs on our head, the God who names the stars and knows the unspoken desires of our heart, the God who cares for fallen sparrows and silent tears, that God sees us completely, constantly, compassionately, and in the end, it's His gaze that defines who we are, that sustains us, that transforms us. It's that gaze that allows us to say, like Hagar in the desert, "You are the God who sees me." It's that gaze that allows us to declare, like David, "Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me." Psalm 27:10. It's that gaze that empowers us to proclaim, like Paul, "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." Romans 8:35, 38, 39. That love sees beyond appearances, persists beyond circumstances, endures beyond our failures. And it's that love that is our anchor when we feel adrift in the pain of invisibility. It's the love that whispers, even in the darkest nights, "I see you, I know you, I value you, I love you, and that will never change." So, dear heart who feels invisible, you are seen, not just by human eyes that can be distracted or insensitive, but by the Creator of the universe who delights in you, who rejoices over you with singing, who rests in his love for you. As the prophet Zephaniah wrote, "The Lord your God is with you, the mighty warrior who saves. He will take great delight in you. In his love, he will no longer rebuke you, but will rejoice over you with singing." Zephaniah 3:17. Imagine that, God of the universe, rejoicing over you with singing. Not just noticing your existence, but celebrating it. Not observing from a distance, but intimately delighting in who you are. That's the truth that transforms our perceived invisibility into divine purpose, that turns our pain into a testimony, that turns our tears into seeds of hope for others who also feel invisible. Because when we know, truly know deep in our soul, that we're seen and deeply loved by God, we start living differently, more freely, more authentically, more in line with who we were created to be, no longer desperate for external validation, no longer exhausted from trying to impress, no longer diminished by a lack of human recognition, instead, confident in that loving gaze that never shifts, secure in that divine embrace that never loosens, strong in that constant presence that never forsakes. It's that confidence that allows us to say, even in the loneliest moments, I'm not alone. I am seen. I am loved. And that is enough. It's that assurance that enables us to find purpose in invisibility. If no one else sees what I'm going through, God does. And maybe, one day, my story of being seen by God when no one else saw me will be exactly what another lonely soul needs to hear. It's that certainty that gives us the courage to keep going, even when the road is hard and the applause is scarce. I'm not doing this for human praise, but for the glory of the one who always sees, always loves, always sustains. In that perspective, invisibility is no longer a sentence. It's sacred ground where we meet God in ways we might never experience on stage, under spotlights, surrounded by admiration. It's in the desert of invisibility that, like Hagar, we can discover new dimensions of God's character, new names for his faithfulness, new expressions of his relentless love. And perhaps, like Hagar, we'll find that our greatest testimony won't be the grand achievements everyone applauds, but the private moments of encountering the God who sees me when no one else did. Moments that, shared at the right time, will become beacons of hope for other hearts that feel forgotten, other souls wrestling with invisibility, other spirits wondering if they still matter to anyone. Because in the end, that's the beauty of God's economy. Nothing is wasted, not even, and perhaps especially, the pain of not being seen. It becomes the soil where our compassion for others grows, the catalyst for a clearer vision of God's heart, the experience that enables us to say with conviction, born not from theory, but from lived reality, you're not alone, you're not forgotten, you are seen. And in transforming our own pain into consolation for others, we find that the invisibility that once hurt us becomes the instrument of our own healing, and the healing of many more. Because the truth is, there is something extraordinarily powerful about being seen, truly seen, not just in our moments of glory, but in our moments of struggle, not just when we're at our best, but when we can hardly get out of bed, not just when we have answers, but when we're filled with painful questions. That kind of seeing, complete, unconditional, persistent, is what truly changes lives. It's what heals wounds so deep that no amount of public applause could ever touch them. It's what restores the dignity no human validation could ever grant. And that's exactly the kind of gaze God directs toward you right now. He sees beyond the masks you show the world, beyond the smiles that conceal tears, beyond the brave words that disguise deep fears. He sees the exhaustion you carry, the weight of responsibilities, the fatigue of trying to be strong for so long, the loneliness of struggles nobody else fully understands. He sees your deferred dreams, your unanswered prayers, the hopes that seem to fade with each disappointment, the whys you hardly dare to whisper. And yet, maybe especially because of all that, he stays. He keeps seeing you. He keeps loving you. He keeps sustaining you, not with judgment, but with compassion, not with impatience, but with unerring gentleness. He knows your journey doesn't always make sense to you, that there are days when invisibility hurts so much you wonder if it's worth continuing, that there are times when even your faith seems too small for the mountain you're facing. And in those times, he doesn't require grand declarations of trust or heroic acts of faith. He simply invites you to rest in the truth that even when you can't sense his presence, he is there. Even when you can't see his purpose, he's working. Even when you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, he's already preparing your way out. As the psalmist wrote, "If I say, surely the darkness will hide me and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you." Psalm 139, 11-12. What an extraordinary promise. Even in the deepest darkness, places where we feel utterly lost, forgotten, invisible, God sees us with perfect clarity. Where our vision fails, his remains unfailing. Where our hope falters, his purpose stands firm. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday, we'll look back and see how these moments of perceived invisibility were, in fact, crucial parts of our journey, how they shaped our character, deepened our compassion, strengthened our resilience, refined our faith. We'll see how, even when we thought we were lost in the desert, we were being guided by an unseen hand. How, even when we thought we were forgotten, we were being prepared for a purpose we couldn't yet comprehend. And perhaps, like Job, after his long season of suffering and questioning, will say, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." Job 42:5. Because there's a kind of vision that only comes through experience, a type of knowledge that can't be acquired by study alone, but must be lived in the depths of the soul. An encounter with God that doesn't happen only in grand moments of ecstatic worship, but also in the low valleys, where his presence is our only hope. It's in those valleys, where we feel most invisible, most forgotten, most abandoned, that we often discover the most transformative truth of all, that we are seen with a love that nothing can diminish, loved with a constancy that nothing can shake, upheld by a strength that nothing can defeat, not because we deserve it, not because we earn it, not because we impress him, but simply because we are his, created by him, redeemed by him, called by him. And that love, unconditional, unearned, unending, changes everything. It changes how we see ourselves, no longer as incomplete projects striving to prove our worth, but as masterpieces in progress, loved at every stage of the process. It changes how we see others, no longer as potential sources of validation or threats to our self-esteem, but as fellow travelers, each carrying unseen battles, each equally precious in God's eyes. It changes how we see our circumstances, no longer as evidence of being forgotten, but as settings where we can encounter God's faithfulness in ways we might not in easier times. And maybe most deeply, it changes how we see God, no longer as a distant judge waiting for us to prove our worth, but as a loving Father delighting in us even when we stumble, pursuing us even when we hide, seeing us even when we feel invisible. So, dear heart who feels forgotten, you're not. Dear soul who feels invisible, you are seen. Dear spirit who feels lost, you have been found. And not just found, but profoundly loved. Not just loved, but chosen with purpose. Not just chosen, but kept in eternal care. As the Apostle Peter wrote, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His wonderful light." 1 Peter 2:9. Chosen, royal, holy, God's own possession, called out of darkness into light. These aren't words for the perfect, the ever-visible, the universally applauded. They're words for those who know the darkness yet choose to believe in the light, for those who've experienced invisibility and yet choose to trust they are seen, for those who've felt the weight of human neglect and yet choose to rest in divine remembrance. They're words for you. Because in the end, it's not other people's gaze that defines you, not human recognition that determines your worth, not public visibility that establishes your purpose. It's the unwavering, loving, attentive gaze of the one who formed you in your mother's womb, who ordained all your days before one of them came to be, who knows every thought before it crosses your mind, who sees not just who you are now, but who you're becoming through every struggle, every tear, every moment of apparent invisibility. It's that gaze, the gaze of the God who sees me, that invites you to leave the shadows of forgottenness for the light of true identity, that calls you by name when others reduce you to a function, that values you for who you are, not just for what you do or how well you perform. It's that gaze that sustains you when everything else feels unstable, that guides you when the path is dark, that reminds you, even in the loneliest moments, that you're never truly alone. Because the God who saw Hagar in the desert is the same God who sees you today. The God who heard unborn Ishmael's cry is the same God who hears your deepest sighs. The God who provided water in the desert is the same God who supplies your needs now, often in ways you'll only recognize in hindsight. He is the God who never sleeps or slumbers, who never gets distracted or forgets, who never grows weary or impatient. He is the God who sees you completely, constantly, compassionately, and that, dear heart, is enough. So the next time you feel invisible, when your contributions go unnoticed, when your effort isn't recognized, when your pain is brushed aside, remember, there is one whose gaze never leaves you, whose love for you never fades, whose presence never abandons you. And in that divine gaze, your invisibility transforms into purpose. Your pain becomes testimony. Your desert becomes a place of encounter. Because you have never truly been alone, never truly been forgotten, never truly been lost. You have always been, and always will be, seen by the one who not only sees what you do, but who you truly are. And that, my friend, changes everything. While the world looks at the stage, God looks behind the scenes. While the world measures results, God recognizes hearts. You are seen by the one who never forgets. You are loved by the one who never stops watching. You are safe, even when you feel invisible. Sleep in peace. Heaven saw you today and is taking care of you, even in silence. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that they are still seen by God. Comment, "He saw me when no one else did." Subscribe to receive words for those who are tired of feeling ignored.